in the village where the sun's embrace was as warm as a mother's hug. The women marched to the riverbank, their determination was as unyielding as the midday heat. The Yoruba folks of this village wore the weather like a badge of honor, for only the lazy dread to complain about the sun's fiery kiss. The village thrived on the sweat of its people, particularly the women, who performed their domestic duties with a devotion. Every housewife sent her daughters to the stream, all except for Bimbo, the orphaned girl with a boat full of holes and a heart full of dreams. Bimbo's boat was a relic from her parents. She was the subject of many whispers. A girl fishing? That's a taboo, the villagers would murmur. But Bimbo, with a determined spirit, paid no heed to their words. She set out each day, hoping her net will embrace the river's bounty. One scorching noon, as Bimbo cast her net with the grace of a dancer, she felt a tug so strong it could have been the river itself calling out to her. With a heave, she pulled the net aboard. It was a fish almost as big as herself, with a wide tail. Her heart raced as she gripped the cleaver tightly, its blade glinting in the sun's unforgiving glare. The giant fish in her net thrashed wildly, its tail slapped the water's surface with thunderous cracks. Bimbo steadied her breath, preparing to bring it aboard. But as she leaned closer, her cleaver poised high. A shock of dark, alluring hair caught her eye. It cascaded like a waterfall over the net, not unlike a woman's. The strange fish turned, and Bimbo's eyes met a sight that rooted her to the spot. It wasn't just any fish, it was a merman, his face blend of fear and confusion, hiding behind the net. Bimbo's grip on the cleaver loosened, her heartbeat were fast that she thought it would burst out of her chest. In her village, there were two different versions about the story of the mer people. One version stated that they devoured fishermen, while the second tale concluded that seeing a mermaid, or in this case, a merman with your bare eyes, could curse you with a lifetime of bad luck. No one actually knows which version of the story was true. Please, was all he said, in the most soft and pitiful voice Bimbo had ever heard. Instead of killing him, she freed the creature from the tangles of the net, helping him back into the river, and watched until he swam from sight deep in the waters of the bay. When she returned to her village, Bimbo kept her encounter with the strange creature a secret, fearing the news would spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, Afonja, the merman, was immensely grateful to the poor fisherman's daughter who had spared his life. For he knew all too well that humans often killed mer people upon capture. To show his gratitude, Afonja cast a spell that filled Bimbo's nets with fish every day. But that wasn't all. Sometimes, under the cloak of night, he would swim to the surface and leave a gift inside Bimbo's boat. Each morning, Bimbo would find treasures beyond her wildest dreams, an oyster with the most lustrous pearls, gold that glimmered like the morning sun, and jewelry so exquisite they seemed to have been crafted by the ocean itself. The village buzzed with curiosity. How does Bimbo catch so many fish? They wondered. And where do these treasures come from? But Bimbo simply smiled. As days turned into weeks, the gifts became more enchanting. Other poor orphan children of her village would gather around, their eyes widened with wonder, as Bimbo shared the ocean's gifts with them. Though she never revealed their true origin, one serene night, after a long day of fishing, Bimbo sat on the shore. She drew out her wooden whistle, it was an heirloom given to her by her late dad, and began to play for her entertainment. The notes floated through the air, followed by a soothing melody that eased the stress of her day's work. Meanwhile, Afonja, the mer prince of the Eastern Ocean, was swimming near the surface of the inlet, admiring the heaven. The stars above mirrored the bioluminescent creatures of his underwater realm. Suddenly, a strange sound caressed his ears, a sound unlike any he had heard in the depths of his ocean home. It was music, a concept foreign to him, and it looks mesmerizing to him with its enchanting tune. Curiosity piqued he, as he swam closer to the source. There, on the rocky shore, sat Bimbo, her fingers danced over the wooden whistle, oblivious to the audience she had attracted. Overcome with curiosity, Afonja couldn't resist. He swam up to the rocky side and peeped over the edge. The sight of the merman startled Bimbo, and her music came to an abrupt halt. Her heart raced at the sight of the creature she had once helped, now appearing before her once again. Afonja, forgetting his own fear of being seen, begged the young girl, "Please, make those beautiful sounds again. In all my years beneath the waves, I have never heard anything so beautiful." Bimbo, though initially terrified, saw the genuine wonder in Afonja's eyes. She composed herself and, with a gentle smile, brought the whistle to her lips once more. The melody resumed, this time even more beautiful, as if the presence of the merprince had infused the music with the essence of the ocean itself. As the notes soared and dipped, Afonja found himself mesmerized. The night air was filled with the sweet sound of Bimbo's whistle, and for a moment, the boundaries between their two worlds blurred. The prince of the ocean and the fisherman's daughter shared a connection that transcended the barriers of land and sea. Meanwhile, Bimbo's fish buyer Tunde had his eyes set on Bimbo. Her beauty wasn't just in her looks but in the way she cast her net, like a ballet dancer on the grand stage of the sea. For weeks, he'd been trying to catch her attention, but Bimbo was as elusive as the slippery catfish in the market. Why does she have more fish than anyone else? Tunde wondered, his curiosity piqued him. One serene evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of black, he decided to follow her behind, secretly peering out from an iroko tree. There she was, laughing and clapping her hands with delight, all by herself. Curiosity piqued Tunde as he craned his neck to take a better look, his eyes widened. And his mouth fell open. A merman? No, it wasn't like the kind of enchanting hair and a voice that could charm fishermen. A merman, strong and majestic, flipping his tail in the shallow waters. Afonja was unlike any creature Tunde had ever seen. A stunning hybrid of man and fish, glistening under the setting sun. So this is what keeps Bimbo away from me. Because of this thing? Tunde whispered to himself, a mix of jealousy and wonder in his voice. The merman's laugh was like the tinkling of bells, and he tossed a fish to Bimbo, who caught it with a giggle as she plays her whistle for him. Tunde's heart sank. How could he compete with a mythical being from the depths of the ocean? But as he watched, an idea began to form. With a furrowed brow and hands on his chin, he stood before his friends who had teased him endlessly about marrying Bimbo, and now, he was ready to array with Macron NT. Listen up, Tunde exclaimed. We have a situation. This stupid mermaid creature is stealing Bimbo's heart, and we must act fast. His friends burst into laughter, slapping their knees. A mermaid? What's next, a flying goat? Chuckled Bayo, trying to catch his breath. It's no joke. Tunde insisted, waving his arms. I saw it with my own eyes. The friends exchanged glances, their laughter faded into curiosity. All right, Tunde, what's your plan? Asked Sagun, scratching his head. We need to scare, or even better, kill it. For good, Tunde declared. The friends huddled together, whispering and plotting. What if we set a fire to smoke it? Since it's a fish, we will make money from it, Bayo suggested. The young men nodded in agreement, and the plan was set. The next night, the friends hid near Bimbo's fishing spot, each holding a torch. The merman awaited patiently for Bimbo's whistle, the signal for their nightly entertainment. But instead of the sweet sound, he was greeted by the sight of male figures with fire dancing in their hands. Who dares disturb the peace of the sea? Afonja bellowed, his voice echoed across the waves. It's us, the mighty fire warriors. Tunde shouted, trying to sound fierce, stay away from my woman. With their fiery torches closing in, Afonja unleashed his merman powers. He swiftly lashed his tail, creating a whirlpool of water that surrounded him like a shield. The flames from the torches hissed and sputtered, struggling to stay alight as Afonja used his tail to deflect the attacks. The men stumbled back, their burning woods failed to penetrate the water barrier. Afonja's tail struck again and again, keeping the flames at bay as he made his escape into the depths of the ocean. Oh, for love of Bimbo! Tunde exclaimed, throwing his hands up in the air. That slippery fish has escaped. Perhaps we should tell the king about this strange sea creature. It's not every day you see a merman, after all. Bayo suggested. The idea seemed to light a firewood torch in their heart, and they set off to the king's palace, their shadows flickered like dancing spirits in the night. Upon reaching the palace, they were greeted by the king's guard, who looked at them as if they had grown 2 heads each. And what business do you have with the king at this ungodly hour? The guard asked, eyeing their torches suspiciously. We've come to report an encounter of a strange creature, Tunde declared, trying to sound official. The guard raised an eyebrow. Strange creature, you say? Well, I suppose that's new. Follow me. They were led into the king's chamber, where King Adekunle was perched on his throne like an eagle watching over his nest. The king, upon seeing the armed group, couldn't help but ask, "Has war struck our peaceful village that you come armed with fire and determination?" "No, your majesty," Bayo replied with a bow. "We have come reporting a strange creature from the river this evening. A male mermaid with fish tail." The king leaned forward, intrigued. "A merman, you say? And how did you come across this creature?" It was then that Tunde, with a dramatic flair, announced, it was Bimbo, the fisherman's daughter, who had been in love with it. The room fell silent as the king's face turned as red as the fiery torches. "Bimbo? In love with a sea creature," he thundered. Without another word, the king sent for Bimbo, who, unaware of the commotion, was still dressing up in her hut almost ready to go fishing. The king's guard arrived, and with a voice as gentle as a cat walking on leaves, he said, "Miss Bimbo, the king requests your presence." Bimbo's heart skipped a bit. She wondered why the king was calling her. She followed the guard to the palace. Upon arrival, she was met with the stern gaze of King Adekunle. "Young lady," he began, "if I ever find out such a thing is happening in my kingdom, you know the consequences." The king's speech was ambiguous to the surprised Bimbo. Her heart pounded like the drums during the New Yam festival. She wondered what the king meant by what he said. Perhaps the secret of the merman was already known. The next morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of white and blue, Bimbo was bothered by the king's harsh words the night before. It replayed in her mind like a broken record, each time scratching at her heart. As she sat inside her deceased father's old boat, which creaked and groaned as if sharing her sorrow, 4 ladies approached the shore. They were known in Ayatoro village for their sharp tongues and sharper wit. Their faces were always twisted in expressions that could scare away even the bravest of a lion. "Ah, Bimbo, dear," croaked the first lady, her voice like the call of a crow, "we've come to fetch a pail of water, but it seems we've found the river's new celebrity instead." The second lady chimed in, her laughter were like the clatter of pots and pans. "Celebrity, indeed. More like the bride of the great king of the ocean. Tell me, dear, does he have a castle made of coral or diamonds?" The third lady, not to be outdone, wagged a finger at Bimbo. Now, don't be stingy with the details, and while you're at it, be a darling and supply us with more fishes. We hear you have an inn with the underwater kingdom." The fourth lady, with a smirk, added, Yes, do tell. Does your Papi man groom prefer his suit tailored or off the rack?" Bimbo couldn't help but let out a cry. The absurdity of the situation, the girl's hurtful utterance, and the thought of her merman friend. Bimbo sat inside her boat. The wood creaked under her weight as she watched the fishermen depart the river. Night soon reached as Bimbo was the only soul left. Her heart were heavy with the day's taunts. The hurtful words of the maidens and King Adekunle's echoed in her mind, like a relentless tide that threatened to drown her spirit. "What if I'm banished?" she thought, her hands were trembling. "Or worse, stoned to death because of the rumors." The whispers around the village were vicious, accusing her of having an affair with a rare hybrid of man and fish, with golden scales. Bimbo noticed she was all by herself alone. Afonja had not swum up to greet her, and it was unlike him to miss their evening entertainment. With a sense of urgency, Bimbo reached for her whistle flute, playing the melody that rippled across the water. It wasn't long before a figure broke the surface. Water cascaded from his form. Afonja had come. "Alas, my precious gem," Afonja began. His voice was a mix of pain and mirth. "I was set upon by a group humans from your village. As I await your whistle's call, but found only an ambush." Bimbo's heart sank. She sighed deeply. "You're now the talk of the village. My life is at stake too." Bimbo's lips quivered as she spoke. "I'm scared of being the mockery girl who fishes. And who's having an affair with a mer creature. I've made my sails, lined my pocket money enough to feed myself, but I wish we can live our lives without any intrusion." Afonja's fish-scale arms reached out to her as she spoke. "Do not let the shallows of this village confine between us." Afonja's eyes pleaded with Bimbo to come live with him in the river. "Please," he implored, "come with me to my kingdom. We can be together always, away from the harsh words and cold stares of your people. You will be my queen and I will be your king. I cannot live beneath the river as you do. I am not a mermaid, with gills to breathe and fins to swim. My place is here, upon the land, under the open sky. Afonja's shoulders slumped, the weight of her words pressed down upon him. But my heart yearns for you, Bimbo, he said, a note of desperation in his tone. Must we be apart because we are different? Indeed our love is strong, Afonja, but love alone cannot change who I am. I must stay where I can live freely, where I can breathe and walk and feel the sun's warmth. With a sad countenance Afonja slipped from her presence without uttering a word. The rumors by the villagers made Bimbo only fish during the day and noon. When it got dark, she would hurry back home to avoid the mocking stares of other fishermen. Tunde began to feel a twinge of excitement at the thought that if Bimbo couldn't love him, she wouldn't love any other man, not even a sea creature, while he was alive. One fateful night, just as Tunde was done with his day's work, he felt an urge to spy on Bimbo. He thought that perhaps she would be with the strange creature at that time because it was during those times that Bimbo usually played her flute to the merman. As Tunde stared at the surroundings, he spotted something that piqued his curiosity. There, sitting at the bank of the river, was a woman who was almost naked. She seemed to be waiting for something or someone. Are you waiting for your fish husband? Tunde retorted with a mocking smile, but the lady who he supposed to be Bimbo didn't move an inch. Have the cat caught your tongue? Tunde said, trying to mask his mockery with bravado. Still, Tunde didn't notice anything odd. He walked towards where she was sitting. As he got closer, he realized that the woman wasn't Bimbo. She had long golden flowing hair and a shimmering tail. It was a mermaid. The mermaid turned to him with a sly smile. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light. Before Tunde could react, she began to sing a haunting melody. The sound was hypnotic and drew Tunde in, making him feel both enchanted and terrified. As he stood there, unable to move, the mermaid's song grew louder and more intense. Suddenly, she lunged at him, grabbing him with her powerful tail. Tunde tried to scream, but no sound came out. The mermaid dragged him into the water with a fierce grip. Tunde struggled, but the mermaid's hold was too strong. She pulled him deeper and deeper into the water. The last thing Tunde saw was the moonlight reflecting off the surface as he was dragged into the depths. The next morning, the villagers found Tunde's familiar cloth floating on the surface of the river. They searched for him but found no trace. The rumors about Bimbo and the sea beast grew even more intense, and the villagers whispered about the mysterious disappearance of Tunde. The disappearance of Tunde sent shockwaves through the village. The once lively markets and riverbanks were now quiet with unease. Whispers grew louder as the villagers exchanged glances, some blaming Bimbo for Tunde's fate, while others speculated that the river spirits were angry. One evening, the village elders convened under the sacred Iroko tree to seek wisdom from the oracle. The air was heavy with tension as the priestess, Mama Abini, emerged, her staff adorned with cowrie shells and feathers. She closed her eyes and began to chant, calling upon the spirits of the river for guidance. Suddenly, her voice changed, deep and echoing, as though 1,000 voices spoke through her. Greed and jealousy have disturbed the balance of our land and waters. A sacrifice was made, not by the innocent but by the prideful. Seek not vengeance, for the river demands harmony, not blood. The villagers fell silent, reflecting on the oracle's words. Mema Abini opened her eyes, gazing at the crowd. To restore peace, you must cleanse your hearts of envy and hatred. The girl, Bimbo, is not the cause of your misfortune but the bearer of lessons you all must learn. As the village tried to process the oracle's message, Bimbo sat at the river bank. Her heart heavy. She played her wooden whistle, the melody carrying her sadness across the waters. Suddenly, the river rippled, and Afonja emerged. Bimbo, he began, his voice soft yet resolute, I cannot bear to see you suffer because of me. My kingdom is vast, but it lacks the warmth of your kindness. I will make amends with your people, even if it risks my own life. Bimbo's eyes welled with tears, but before she could speak, Afonja raised a hand. Do not worry for me. Sometimes, love requires bravery, even if the outcome is uncertain. The next morning, as the sun rose, the villagers gathered by the river, led by Memar Abini. To their shock and awe, a Fonja rose from the waters, his golden scales glinting in the sunlight. He bowed respectfully before the crowd. "I am a Fonja, Prince of the Eastern Ocean. I come not as a threat but as a friend." Tunde's fate was not my doing but a result of his own greed and disregard for the balance between our worlds. The villagers murmured among themselves, but Mama Abini raised her hand for silence. "Let us listen," she urged. Afonja continued, "I have brought gifts of the sea not to bribe you but to show goodwill. In return, I ask for peace for Bimbo, who has shown me kindness. And for my people, who mean no harm." He then presented a chest filled with pearls, gold, and rare shells. The villagers gasped at the sight, their initial fear melting into awe. King Adekunle, who had been observing the scene, stepped forward. "Prince of the Ocean," he said, his voice steady, "your words are wise, and your gifts are generous. But we are a people who value deeds above treasures. How do we know this peace will last?" Afonja replied, "By fostering respect. Let us create a pact. No harm shall come to the sea from your people, and we, the merfolk, shall protect your fishermen from harm." The king nodded thoughtfully and turned to Bimbo. "And you, young girl, have shown courage beyond your years. You remind us all that kindness is a strength, not a weakness." The villagers, humbled by the events, vowed to honor the pact. They apologized to Bimbo for their harsh words and promised to protect her from further harm. Bimbo chose to remain in the village, continuing her fishing but now with the respect and admiration of her people. Afonja visited occasionally, ensuring the pact was upheld and sharing stories of his underwater world. Over time, the village flourished, its people learning to coexist with the river's mysteries. The story of Bimbo and the Merman became a cherished tale, passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of compassion and the importance of harmony between man and nature. And so, the village of Ayatoro thrived, not just on the sweat of its people but on the wisdom gained from a fisherman's daughter and the Prince of the Ocean.